All right, this video is for questions 9, 10, and 11 on your Simplifying Algebraic Expressions quiz review. I started 9 on the last video, but I got cut off, so I'm going to redo it. All right, when 7/8 y plus 2 2/3 is subtracted from, you have to know what subtracted from means, is subtracted from 3 1/4 y minus 7 5/6. The result is, okay, subtracted from means we have to write 3 1/4 y minus 7 5/6. That expression gets written first. Then we subtract off this expression because this has to be subtracted from the original. So we have minus, and then in parentheses, 7/8 y plus 2 2/3. A lot of times when students question, subtracted from, why do I have to reverse the order? Well, I usually fall back on what is 2 subtracted from 10. And most students can tell me 2 subtracted from 10, oh, 2 subtracted from 10 is just 8. So I say, what's the mathematical expression for that? Oh, that's 10 minus 2. So we reverse the order when we're doing subtracted from. Not sure if that helps you try to understand why it's subtracted from the other. But if you need to, just know the first expression written before the word subtracted from actually has to be written second when you're subtracting from. All right, let's continue on. So if I have a 1 in front of this set of parentheses and I distribute that through, I can just clear out those parentheses. 3 1/4 y minus 7 5/6. Now I have to distribute this minus through the second set of parentheses. That will change the sign of each within. Minus 7/8 y, I write as minus 7/8 y. And then we have minus a positive 2 2/3. Minus a positive 2 2/3. Well, we know minus a positive becomes minus. So now we have to combine like terms. Let's combine our y's. To combine our y's, we would need to find a common denominator. I know that Miss Sherman normally has everyone write everything as improper fractions, find a common denominator, and then you just have to focus on simplifying those numerators. So I guess I'll do that. 3 times 4 is 12, and one more is 13/4 y. I have to subtract off 7/8 y. So I'm going to have to do minus 7/8 y. I'm just going to group those together. And then here, minus 7 5/6. 6 times 7 is 42, and 5 more is 47. So it's a minus 47/6. And then here I have a minus 2 2/3. Minus 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 more is 8/3. So now in order to combine my y's, I have to find a common denominator, which means I'd multiply this 4 by 2 to make it an 8. I'm going to multiply the 4 by 2. I have to also multiply the 13 by 2. 13 times 2 is 26. 26 over 4 times 2 is 8. 26/8 y minus 7/8 y. Then here I also have to find a common denominator here. My common denominator for my constants would be a 6. So I'd multiply my denominator here and my numerator here by 2 so the denominators can match. So that's minus 47/6 minus 8 times 2 is 16/6. Now I'm going to do my X's and No's chart. So I'll continue up here. I'm going to combine my y's. I'm going to combine my numbers. So for my y's, I have 26/8 y minus 7/8 y. Common denominator will remain, so I got my 8's. 26 minus 7. 26 minus 7 is actually 19/8 y. Now I'm going to combine my numbers. Minus 47 sixths minus 16 sixths. Signs are the same. I'll find the sum. I'll keep the sign. Sorry. Signs are the same. I'll find the sum. I'll keep the sign. So 47 and 16. 7 and 6 is 13. 4 and 1 is 5, and 1 more is 6. So that must be 63. Signs are the same. I'll find the sum. I'll keep the sign. So I have a minus 63, 63 sixths. Now I'm sure you have to rewrite these back as improper fractions. And maybe some of you don't convert and find common denominators, but I know that Ms. Sherman encourages that. 8 goes into 19 2 times. 8 times 2 is 16 with 3 left over. So that's 2 and 3 eighths y minus 6 goes into 63. How many times does 6 go into 63? 6 goes into 63 10 times. 6 times 10 is 60, so we have 3 6 left over. And then you have to actually simplify that down to 1/2. So your final answer is 2 and 3 eighths y minus 10 and 3 6 becomes 1/2. So that would be that in final form. That's an equal sign there, just so you know. Sorry, that took a bit. That question takes a bit. Whew. Subtracted from when you got mixed numbers or fractions running around takes a little bit of effort. I hope that helped. Let's take a look at number 10. Which expression is the factorized form of? We have 50 WZ minus 5Z. So when we're going to factor means undo the distributive property. So to factor, it's really just using the distributive property, but we have to think about it as undo the distributive property. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I have to see what factors I have in common. Well, I'm going to tell you, I already see that there's a Z in common. And I say, what does 50 and 5, what factor do those have in common? Well, 50 is the same as 5 times 10. So I could rewrite 50 as 5 times 10, WZ. Then I still have my minus 5Z. I find that if I can write it factored out, it's easier to see what comes out front. What's the greatest common factor? Well, both terms have a 5 in common, and both terms have a Z in common. So we get to factor that 5Z out in front of our parentheses, because that's what's in common to both terms, to this first term and to this second term. Now, once I factor out a 5Z, what am I left with in my first term? Well, I'm left with 10W minus, what am I left with in this second term? I have to have a number left here. What number do I have to put here? So if I distributed 5Z back through, I'd end up with 5Z. Oh, a 1. 5Z times 1 is 5Z. So that's the factored form. These are not like terms. You can't shove them together. This is your final answer. How can you check that you're correct? You could always do a quick check by distributing back through. By distributing back through. So if I had 5Z, then in parentheses 10W minus 1, and I multiplied 5Z back through, 5Z times 10W, 5 times 10 is 50, WZ. Keep my minus sign. What's 5Z times 1? Well, 5 times 1 is 5, and I can't lose my Z. All right. Hope that helps on that one. And I believe the last question on your quiz involves perimeter. Use the rectangle below to answer the following questions. Write an expression in simplest form that represents the perimeter of the above rectangle. So for perimeter in mathematics, you have to know that's the distance around the outer edge of the figure. If you were walking around the outer edge, we want to know the total distance you'd walk. And so in math, when you're trying to find perimeter, you just add up all sides on the figure. So in a rectangle, if this side is 6 feet, this side is 6 feet. In a rectangle, if this side is 0.5x plus 10, the top edge is also 0.5x plus 10. So we're going to go ahead and add those up. That's what perimeter means. We're going to take 6 plus, so if I walked up this edge, it's 6. Walk across that edge, it's 0.5x plus 10. Walking down this edge, I got to add 6. Walking across this edge, I have to add 0.5x plus 10. And now you could always do your X's and O's chart to combine. So I'll do that because I think a lot of times that's how both Miss Pearson and Miss Sherman have students organize their work for this. X's and O's. So for our X's, it appears as though I have 0.5x plus 0.5x. And what's 0.5 plus 0.5? What's 1/2 plus 1/2? Oh, that's 1x. And if you want, you just, if you need to do 0.5 plus 0.5 and you're like, that's 1/2, how does it end up being 1? You can line up your decimal points, 5 and 5. Drag it down. 5 and 5 is 10. Put down a 0, carry a 1. 1 plus 0 is 1 plus 0 is 1. That's really 1.0. So 1/2 and 1/2 is 1. And then we're going to combine all our numbers. So we have 6, 10, 6, 10. So we're going to do 6 plus 10. Oops, I better line up my place values. Better line up the ones place. There's 6 plus 10 plus 6 plus 10. You don't line up place values, you don't have a shot at being able to add up numbers. 6 and 6 is 12. Put down a 2, carry a 1. 1, 2, 3. So that's a positive 32. So 10, 20, and 12 more is 32. Okay, good. So your final answer for this one would be 1x plus 32. Those are not like terms. You can't combine those. And it would be measured in feet. Perimeter is just a distance around the outer edge. All right, I hope that helped. Good luck on Tuesday's quiz.